Donald Trump took the helm of the United States administration, and the entire political process changed in an instant. After signing several decrees, including the Paris Climate Agreement and the withdrawal from the World Health Organization, Mr. Trump drew attention to the fact that Greenland, currently under Danish control, poses a security problem, stating that this situation needs to change urgently. The United States leader has made it clear that he wants to incorporate Greenland into the United States.
Well, we need Greenland for national security purposes. I've been told that for a long time.
Greenland is necessary, not for us, it's necessary for international security.
Greenland is the largest island in the world, located between the Arctic and Atlantic Oceans. This island is strategically located in the Arctic Ocean. This has the potential to place Greenland at the center of growing competition in the region. The island is also seen as a blocking center to prevent future incursions by Russia and China, with both countries eager to build an Arctic playground. Greenland's security is a top priority, especially with China's desire to explore the Arctic Ocean with icebreakers. This territory of 45,000 inhabitants is also at the forefront in terms of underground resources. Greenland is also rich in natural resources, including rare earth metals, and is located in the middle of two potential shipping routes through the Arctic. This could shorten shipping times and bypass the Suez and Panama canals with the melting of sea ice in the north. Because of all these features, Greenland has recently become the center of the world agenda. Donald Trump's repeated assertions that the United States should own Greenland, despite strong opposition from the leaders of Denmark and Greenland, have raised concerns about possible future aggression. Mr. Trump has stated that the United States needs Greenland for national security purposes. Asked whether he could rule out the use of force, Mr. Trump did not consider that option. Instead, the United States leader argued that Denmark has no legitimate claim to the island, suggesting that if the Copenhagen government did not allow it, it would be a very hostile act against them. So, what has been Denmark's reaction to Donald Trump's Greenland outburst? Has the Copenhagen government made any military preparations to counter Washington's ambitions to seize the island? How will the future of Greenland take shape? How will the competition for dominance on the island affect Russia and China? We will discover the answers to all these critical questions together. But first, please do not forget to subscribe to our channel, turn on notifications, and like to stay informed about our content. Let us get started! First of all, it is worth noting that tensions in Denmark reached a peak after United States leader Donald Trump bloated the idea of buying Greenland. In fact, Trump's idea had such a strong impact on Denmark that Copenhagen even talked about military measures against the island. The Danish government announced that it would invest 14.6 billion kroner, or $2 billion, to strengthen security in Greenland and the Arctic. Denmark's $2 billion investment included 3 new Arctic ships, additional long-range drones with advanced imaging capabilities, and strengthened satellite capacity. This security agreement covers the Arctic and North Atlantic region and was negotiated with the governments of Greenland and the Faroe Islands. The move comes after President Donald Trump reiterated his desire to seize Greenland and rejected the possibility of using military or economic force to take control of the island. Danish Prime Minister Mette Frederiksen told reporters after meeting with French President Emmanuel Macron, stressing the need to respect territories and the sovereignty of states. Danish Defence Minister Troels Lund Poulsen said that they have to face the fact that there are serious security and defence challenges in the Arctic and North Atlantic. So what do the people of Greenland think about this? The latest poll, conducted in the wake of Trump's claims, found that only 6% of Greenlanders are in favour of their island becoming part of the United States, while 85% are against it and 9% are undecided. The poll was based on web interviews conducted between January 22 and 27 among 497 Greenlanders over the age of 18. The island's government shares the same sentiments as the local population. Greenland's Prime Minister Mute Egede stated that the island belongs to the people. Both the people of Greenland and the island government have made it clear that they do not want the region to come under United States control. So why, despite all this opposition, does United States leader Donald Trump still insistently want Greenland? In fact, Trump's interest in Greenland is not new. He first expressed his fondness for the region in 2019. However, the United States leader's rhetoric has never translated into any action. It remains to be seen whether Trump has real plans this time in Washington to advance any attempt to seize Greenland. Experts speculate that the United States leader wants to disrupt the playing field that China and Russia have established in the Arctic by seizing control of Greenland. To achieve this goal, the United States president-elect does not completely rule out military intervention. The fact that Trump has made no secret of his preference for military intervention is the fact that has exacerbated tensions the most. It is widely believed that Donald Trump's first thought is to utilize the natural resources in the Arctic in line with United States interests. This is seen as the clearest economic message to China and Russia. At the moment, China also has influence in Greenland. In the 2010s, Greenland's leaders encouraged interest from outside mining companies, including leading Chinese companies, and eventually signed a lease to the Australian company Energy Transition Minerals, formerly Greenland Minerals. The acquisition of a major stake in Energy Transition Minerals by China's Shenki Resources was a red flag for Denmark, the European Union, and the United States, who saw the Beijing regime as trying to increase its global dominance of the rare earths market while Europe was trying to reduce its own potential supply. The issue was shelved in 2021 when Greenland's parliament banned all uranium mining, halting further development of Kvanefjeld for the time being. In the same year, the government also further banned any oil and gas activity. Predictably, the majority of mining companies subsequently stayed away from Greenland due to concerns that any investment would be jeopardized by future political decisions. But instead of staying away from the island, China took the position that its desire to control the territory was rooted in the past. In 2015, Greenland's Minister of Finance and Home Affairs, Vitus Kujauqitsok, visited China to discuss possible investments in mining, hydropower, port, and other infrastructure projects. A firm called China Communications Construction Company bid to build 2 airports, one in the capital Nuuk and one in Ilulissat. Another Chinese firm, General Nice Group, offered to buy an abandoned Danish naval base in northeast Greenland, while the Chinese Academy of Sciences requested to build a permanent research centre and satellite ground station near Nuuk. None of this was in line with the first Trump administration, which pressured Denmark to convince the Greenlandic government that a significant and official Chinese presence on the island was undesirable. The Danes and Greenlanders have therefore rejected Chinese attempts to invest in Greenland-based projects. In particular, the Trump administration believed that China's interest in Greenland had ulterior commercial and military motives. Therefore, Donald Trump wants to keep Greenland under control and push China away from the Arctic. But does the United States have the territorial structure to push China away if it seizes the island? In the early 1950s, the United States built Thule Air Force Base 750 miles north of the Arctic Circle. Initially a missile early warning and radio communications base, it was transferred to the newly established United States Space Force in 2020. The site was renamed Pituffik Spaceport in 2023. As the northernmost United States military facility, Pituffik updated its radar and tracking capabilities to provide missile warning, defense, and space surveillance and satellite command missions. It also supported scientific research focused on the Arctic, while the base was intended to increase military capabilities in the Arctic region for both the United States and its allies. The base had both real and symbolic significance for American strategic interests in the Arctic, as it had the ability to track shipping and air and satellite positions. The actual real importance of the base was quite critical. It acts as a roadblock against missiles from China, Russia, and even North Korea. This is one of the main reasons why Trump wants Greenland. This is why most of the United States foreign policy establishment, not just those in Trump's orbit, view with concern any significant Chinese presence in Greenland, whether temporary or permanent, and the potential risk factors posed by Russia and North Korea in the region. Trump wants to reduce all these risk factors in and around Greenland to zero. In addition to the threat posed by China, Russia's influence in Greenland cannot be ignored. It is thought that the United States leader is also aware of this situation. Greenland is seen as a critical strategic center for Russia. Concerns about Russia operating in the Arctic are not new. The United States has been concerned since the Soviet Union used submarine patrols to assert power in the North Atlantic. The Arctic nations have been dealing with an increasingly unpredictable Russian regime since President Vladimir Putin's invasion of Ukraine. An Icelandic official said, after a recent trip to the region, Russia's growing military activity in the Arctic and its attempts to change governance in the Arctic region are adding to the region's challenges. Russia is an Arctic country whose northern border is so vast that it accounts for 40% of the Arctic coastline. Similar to what China is doing in the South China Sea, Russia wants to make Arctic waters its sovereign territory. Iceland, one of the countries that plays an important role in the region, argues that it is a key base for the United States to monitor Russian submarines from both land and sea. Although Iceland does not have an army, it can provide air surveillance while relying on the United States for submarine surveillance. The United States also has a service member group deployed to Keflavik Air Base, which operates P-8A Poseidon flights in the North Atlantic. Despite all these security measures, Iceland's foreign minister noted that Russia regrouped in the Arctic in 2014 after annexing Crimea. Former United States Second Fleet Commander Vice Admiral Dan Dwyer told a Navy League conference last year that Russia sees the Arctic as its #1 transatlantic maritime priority. Moscow prioritized the Arctic as the most important maritime direction and pledged to protect these waters by all means. This position included increased attention to the Arctic coast, as well as the promotion of Russia's new missile capabilities. This Russian strategy implied 6 dual-use military bases, a dozen airfields, and a fleet of at least 40 icebreakers. With this powerful naval group, Moscow sees the Arctic as a strategic source of energy and natural resources, and the Kremlin wants to continue its scientific research in the region. Russia also wants to manage the shipping routes of the Northern Sea Route and protect both its economic and security interests in the region in its own way through a military presence. Recently, Moscow has added a 5th component related to the indigenous population in the region. Experts believe that Russia's military presence in the Arctic peaked during the Soviet era, and recent increases in defense spending have expanded operations in the region, but it is still far below its Cold War peak. It is also worth noting that Russia's position on the Arctic in terms of its 2023 defense strategy is more domestic than valuing international cooperation. Last year, Russia took a page out of China's South China Sea playbook by revising its Arctic 2035 policy. In the 2023 revision to Arctic 2025, the Kremlin emphasized its own national interests in the region and would deal with nations bilaterally rather than working with the Arctic Council. This move comes at a time when other Arctic nations have shied away from working with Moscow in protest against its invasion of Ukraine. While Russia is still a member of the Council's focused on economic concerns in the Arctic, it has not been invited to the last 2 meetings of Arctic defense chiefs. Experts speculate that Russia is instead looking to non-Arctic partners such as China. In the context of this thinking, the Russian-Ukrainian war could lead the Moscow regime to pay more attention to the Northern Fleet. The Black Sea Fleet, which has suffered major attacks by Ukrainian forces, is essentially stuck in the Black Sea, while Moscow's Baltic Fleet is currently mostly surrounded by North Atlantic Treaty Organization countries. But Moscow may have the chance to use the Northern Fleet more threateningly against NATO. Based on the Kola Peninsula in the European Arctic, Moscow's Northern Fleet is the only European-based Russian fleet with direct access to the Atlantic Ocean, and thus to the world's oceans. The fact that the Northern Fleet possesses almost all of Russia's nuclear submarines is seen as adding to the Putin threat in the region. Experts say that the Arctic countries want to keep tensions in the region low, but they also need to be prepared for the possibility of further miscalculations or misunderstandings that could result in military action. With Russia increasing its presence in the region and deploying all of its submarines, the United States and the United Kingdom are increasingly concerned about Russian submarine activity in the Arctic and North Atlantic. Last year, British officials said they now routinely see Russian submarines operating in greater numbers around the United Kingdom and in the Irish Sea. Analysts have pointed to increased activity in tracking Russian submarines. Last year, the nuclear attack boat Kazan, a Yasin M-class guided missile submarine armed with long-range land attack missiles, sailed for exercises in the Caribbean. The capability of Russia's modern nuclear attack boats and their ability to strike targets in Europe from the high north was an important reason for the United States Navy to rebuild the Second Fleet. In retaliation, Moscow developed a new type of doomsday submarine, a school bus-sized torpedo armed with a nuclear warhead designed to attack major port cities in the Atlantic. The first project 09852, Belgorod, was delivered in 2022 and assigned to Russia's Northern Fleet. Increasing threats were causing experts to warn more and more about the risk Russia poses in the Arctic. The Arctic may be somewhat out of sight, out of mind, but Moscow has a military presence there, and the country patrols the region using icebreakers, submarines, and aircraft. Both the United States and the Arctic actors need to face this reality. The United States continues to increase its partnerships with allies like Iceland to bring more security and capabilities to the region. The Icelandic leadership says that part of this collective strength comes from the addition of Sweden and Finland to North Atlantic Treaty Organization, NATO. As we have seen, the risk factors posed by Russia and China in the direction of the Arctic Ocean are indeed large. But scenarios in which the United States buys Greenland or invokes the option of military intervention to seize the island could put Washington and the Western alliance on opposite poles. It is precisely at this point that military analysts believe that attention should be paid to the possibility of Russia or China moving closer to their Arctic partners. Indeed, Russia and China have the potential to adopt such a strategy, or both countries could intensify their covert military and naval activities in the Arctic. This would not be a positive outcome for both the United States and the Arctic countries. This is why experts argue that the focus should not be on disputes over who should retain sovereignty over Greenland, but on Russia and China, which are seen as the real threats in the Arctic. They point out how these two countries can be contained by the NATO wing. Thank you for watching.